What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the next shotgun. This is the Bryson 800. And diving right in, let's have a look at our shotgun range comparison in relation to the other shotguns in the game. And as you can see here, we actually have the second best one-shot kill potential out of any of the shotguns. The only one that beats this is the Lockwood 300, and it doesn't even beat it by a whole lot. As for our in-game rate of fire, this is 72 rounds per minute, and what this means for our time to kill potential is obviously with a one-shot kill, it's 0 milliseconds, but with a two-shot kill, it's going to take you 834 milliseconds to kill, which is obviously something we want to avoid, so you want to make sure you're going for that one-shot kill as much as possible with this. This is not a spammable gun. But then let's get into our hipfire, and we actually have the best hipfire spread in the shotgun category here, which is excellent to see. And speaking of that, I did want to compare this to our aim down sight spread as well. And it's quite interesting with the Bryson 800 with no attachments, our aim down sight spread isn't really much tighter than our hipfire spread. And that is quite out of the ordinary for a shotgun in this game. Keep in mind, of course, once you start factoring attachments in, this can and will change quite a bit. Next up, let's get into our handling stats, and our aim down sight time is 365 milliseconds, which is quite slow, although when you factor in the fact we have a one-shot kill potential, it's really not that bad compared to other one-shot kill weapons. Our sprint out time is also a little bit on the slower side for shotguns at 182 milliseconds. Now, let's get into our reload add time, and with this, we do have to load each shell individually, and it turns out our first shell is going to take 0.82 seconds to load, and then every shell after that will take about 0.75 seconds to load. And this is fairly interesting because normally that first shell animation is going to take significantly longer than every additional shell, but not so much with this gun. It's not nearly as punishing in that way. But then finally, when it comes to the base stats of this gun, let's get into our mobility stats. And it turns out across the board, we're just a little bit below average with this gun. It's not significantly below average. You can still get around the map fairly quickly with this. It's just a bit below average for shotguns. And with that, let's get into the more interesting elements that come with the attachments. And the first set of attachments I want to cover are our guard attachments. And it turns out the first guard, the Demo X50, will increase our rate of fire up to 77 rounds per minute, whereas the Lockwood Series 2 guard will reduce our rate of fire down to 64 rounds per minute. And then the final one doesn't have any impact on our rate of fire at all. As for the attachments that impact our range values, we have 7 different barrels that we can use with this gun, although only 5 of them will impact our ranges. Unfortunately, only one barrel on this gun will increase our range, but we do get a massive increase at 26%. That's with the 29.5-inch rifled barrel. And then for all of the barrels that reduce our ranges, they honestly don't really hurt our ranges that much, which is nice to see at least. However, I typically lean toward that first barrel. And then when we get into the muzzle section, this is pretty standard for shotguns. We have several different suppressors that impact our ranges that you can see there. The best being a 14% increase to range, which happens with 2 of the suppressors. And then the chokes will also slightly impact our range values, but not nearly as much as some of those suppressors. After that, let's talk about aim down sight spread. And it turns out several of the barrels, but not all of them, state that they will change our aim down sight spread. And then we have the 3 different chokes that will impact our spread. And as we can see here, looking at the barrels, there's only one barrel that states that it improves our aim down sight spread. That's once again that 29.5-inch rifle barrel, the one that gives us the range increase. And that appears to give us a very nice improvement to our spread. I measured a roughly 40% improvement to our spread. Whereas for all of those other 4 barrels that are listed here, they state that they give a wider aim down sight pellet spread, but based on my testing, there really isn't that much of a difference with most of them aside from that last one, the 8-inch CQB barrel. For all of the others, if anything, I was actually seeing some slight improvements to our aim down sight spread. So I wouldn't worry too much about those ones, but you definitely want to be aware of that 8-inch barrel. And then, of course, when it comes to the chokes, just like with all of the other shotguns we've tested so far, the Bryson choke seems to give us the best and most consistent overall aim down sight spread. And this improves our spread by about 50%, which is huge. Now, finally, for the non-ammunition attachments at least, I wanted to take a look at the attachments that impact our sprint out time, because that is a very important stat with shotguns, and especially with this shotgun, it has a bit of a slower sprint out time by default, so you definitely want to improve that with attachments whenever possible. And with this, you can see our lasers and flashlights will give us nice improvements there, the best being the EXF solar flare. Whereas with the stock attachments, we have a bunch of stocks that we could potentially use here. And it turns out even the stocks that state that they don't improve our sprint out time, they do. So the Guardian, the Watchman, and the Ripcord, these all improve our sprint out time by the same amount, even though it's not stated. However, the stockless pistol grip as well as the sawed-off mod, these are the ones that are going to help the most out of any single attachment with our Sprintout Time. It's also interesting to point out that the FTAC Apollo stock states that it harms our Sprintout Time, and based on my testing, that doesn't appear to be the case at all. Now, finally, for the important attachments I wanted to cover, let's get into the different ammunition attachments, and they're all pretty standard for shotguns here. Dragon's Breath, unfortunately, after that Season 2 Reloaded update, it got nerfed pretty hard across the board. And while you can get very consistent one-shot kills within about 6 or 7 meters, anything beyond that, it's now going to take you 2 shots to kill. And as a result, I'd actually recommend staying away from Dragon's Breath entirely. I think the base shotgun is far superior. As for slugs, the Bryson 800 is not bad in the slug department for 6v6 maps at least. However, on bigger maps or extremely long-range situations, you're definitely not going to have the same sort of potential as the Lockwood 300. You can see there, our maximum one-shot kill potential to the body requires an upper torso shot, and this extends out to about 32 meters, which is fairly easy to navigate these standard maps in this game with. But if you're trying to play ground war or something like that, or you're trying to snipe somebody across the map, you're not going to have nearly as much success with the slug on the Bryson 800 compared to the Lockwood 300. And then finally, of course, with the explosive slugs, we do get slightly better ranges than the standard slug, but just remember, like with all of the other shotguns, if the enemy is using bomb squad, even a point-blank headshot won't kill them, so that renders the explosive slug essentially useless. But with that, we can finally move into some excellent attachment combinations, and the first one I want to share for you guys is my all-arounder. This is the one that I will use most of the time if I want to use the Bryson 800. And with this, we've got the Bryson choke and the 29.5-inch rifled barrel. This is to give us the tightest possible pellet spread, and as you can see, that is a ridiculously tight pellet spread right there compared to the base. So as long as you get aimed down sight, this thing almost behaves like a slug. Additionally, we've got the VLK 7mW laser to help with sprint out time and our aim down sight time, since in many situations we will want to get aimed down sight with this. We have the sawed-off stock mod to help as much as possible with sprint out time, as well as aim down sight time again. And then finally, the Demo X50 tactical pump. This is to give us a faster rate of fire overall. And you can see some tuning values I worked with as well to improve this gun and just make it a little bit better. You don't really need to tune, but you can make things slightly better if you do tune like this. And with this, we have an aim down sight time of 405 milliseconds, which again, for a one-shot kill weapon, if you're treating this kind of like a quick scoping gun, which you'll often want to do if you're not right up close and personal, 405 milliseconds is actually not bad in that case. And our sprint out time is incredibly fast at 90 milliseconds. That is nearly instant in this game, which is excellent and allows you to run around the map quite freely. And when it comes to our range values with this, you can see we have a very consistent one-shot kill where it's almost guaranteed as long as you're hitting at least half of your pellets or so. This will extend out to about 8 meters, and our one-shot kill potential is now 18 meters. It almost feels like you're using a slug when you snipe somebody at 18 meters with this shotgun. And that just allows this gun to be very, very versatile, and that's why I love this setup so much. If you find yourself right up close and personal, don't bother aiming down sight, just get that hip-fire shot off as fast as possible. However, as soon as you start to notice you're stretching that range, you can actually stretch out really far and still put people down as long as you aim down sight. So there we go, that's the first one, and like I said, that's the one I'm going to be using the vast majority of the time. However, I did want to share a slug build as well for those that like using slugs. And with this, we are once again using the Bryson choke and the 29.5-inch rifled barrel. The range benefits on that just can't be ignored, and that's why I really like it with this gun. Also, once again, we have the VLK laser 7mW. This is primarily to help with aim down sight time and aiming stability in this case. We've got a Slimline Pro optic on there. Obviously, you can swap that out for whatever optic you're comfortable with, but with this sort of setup, I like the Slimline Pro. And then finally, of course, we have the 12-gauge slug. And again, I did share some tuning values there that I have done for this particular setup. And the big thing to point out with this is our aim down sight spread is very significantly tightened up with this setup. At 25 meters, you should still be very accurate on your target, which is excellent. Our aim down sight time is a little bit slower than the previous build, but not by too much. It's still very reasonable for a one-shot kill gun. Our sprint out time, unfortunately, didn't improve a whole lot with this, and therefore this isn't the type of gun you're going to be sprinting around like crazy. You're more so going to want to play this a bit more defensively and pick people off. And it's also worth noting, with the combination of that barrel and the Bryson choke, we actually get a very nice range boost here. And now our upper torso one-shot kill potential extends out to about 38 meters, which is very nice. Overall, with a build like this, you still have to be very aware of the ranges that you're going to be challenging enemies in. You can't be sniping people the same way that you can with a Lockwood slug. But as long as you're controlling your engagement distances nicely, you can be putting people down very effectively with this slug build. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the Bryson 800. And when it comes to my thoughts on this shotgun, I really enjoy using it. I do think once you get certain attachments on it, it really starts to excel. Out of the box, I think it can be a bit inconsistent, a little bit shaky. I don't like using it without attachments, but once you get the right attachments on there, I actually find you can find a ton of success with this gun. I absolutely love stretching out to like 15 meters or more and still picking people off without even having to use a slug. Now, of course, that is just my opinion on the Bryson 800, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this in the comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes, we've almost covered every gun in the game now. We've just got one more shotgun and then the pistols to cover. I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.